If you guys wanted Coutts 2.0 to escalate, this is the perfect situation.
Well, that's not what we want.
Oh, I think so.
Last week in Southern Alberta, the RCMP sent a SWAT team after a Coutts blockade supporter for allegedly attempting to take down a fence. And then the Crown tried to throw him in prison over whether or not he'd be allowed to talk to his best friend.
I just want to give a big shout out to the support group that came out tonight to support this, right? Because without them, I truly would have been left for remand. So I really do want to give a heartfelt shout out to the ones that showed up and supported us today.
Today we're talking about Alex, one of the thousands of Albertans who showed up for the Coutts blockade, a peaceful protest which forced the lifting of COVID mandates in Alberta and acted as a catalyst for Premier Jason Kenney's stepping down as the UCP leader.
It clearly is not adequate support to continue on as leader. And that is why tonight I have informed the president of the party of my intention to step down as leader of the United Conservative Party.
Alex showed his support for the blockade as a Southern Albertan and a salt-of-the-earth Canadian. And like many, the Democracy Fund is helping him fight blockade tickets via truckerlawyer.ca. Donations qualify for a charitable tax receipt crowdfunded through your support. His lawyers have been fighting tooth and nail since the beginnings of the blockade for those who put it all on the line to peacefully protest vaccine mandates. To start, Alex received a minor warrant for allegedly trying to take down a fence. This came after the events of Grace Life Church, which saw Pastor James Coutts spend over a month behind bars, and the church itself fenced off entirely to prevent congregants from attending service. Meanwhile, Jason Kenney was breaking his own COVID rules, fine dining above the rest of us. But not Alex. You see, Alex, like many Albertans, learned to peacefully voice his concerns over the past few years. And when he heard about what was going on at Grace Life Church, he decided that he wanted to go and hear the pastor speak. Some people attempted to take the fence down, and then other people put the fence back up, assisting the RCMP officers on site. For this incident, Alex was charged with mischief under $5,000 and obstructing a police officer. It's been a long time since that Grace Life Church incident, and recently the RCMP actually sent a SWAT team after Alex for, again, allegedly attempting to take down a fence. Now, what ended up happening was that Alex had a conversation with the person in charge of the supposed SWAT team, and he said, and he did, come in later that day to show up and to sign the conditions of release and deal with any paperwork. Because he was involved in the Coutts blockade, however, the Crown attempted to force Alex into a no communication condition with others at the blockade, including a lifelong friend of his. Alex absolutely refused to sign this condition, but instead of being hauled away to Lethbridge remand, he actually was released to a peaceful protest that was growing outside this little Fort Macleod RCMP detachment throughout the day. Here's Alex to give you an understanding of how things unfolded and how he became a free man.
So the reason there was a warrant out for my arrest regarding the Grace Life Church. They had some fences surrounding the Grace Life Church, and I attended there to, listen to the minister there to give a message, and that warrant's been around for a few years now, and they kept pressuring and for me to come in, and today they showed up at our residence with quite a large SWAT team to come and enact that warrant. I was able to have a conversation with the constable in charge, and had arranged for me to come in and deal with these matters. And he promised me that I would be out before supper time. So I showed up at the RCMP station. It was hanging over my shoulders and I wanted it dealt with. So when I got there, we discussed a few things. He said it's going to take a little time to get all the paperwork drafted up and fingerprints. And I said, okay, that's fine. So that crowd grew, right? Obviously, I wasn't aware of what was going on outside, but obviously that crowd was growing. And I came to doing the fingerprints and all the signing the promissory notes to appear in court, when all of a sudden the last charge of mischief came from Coutts. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I was aware of that. He did tell me that there was an additional charge since the Grace Life Church incident. So then all of a sudden I'm reading down there, and it says that I was not to have any contact with Marco and George Jansen, Marco Van Hugenbos. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not agreeing to that. I said, Marco has been my best friend for too many years, right? And he says, well, what does that got to do with it? I said, no. I says, I I can't abide to that. I says, I talk to Marco every day. I refuse to sign with that condition there. Is that condition removed, or we got to continue this, or I sit here until we get it removed? And they says, well, we can't remove it. It was put on by the Crown, right? The RCMP said, well, I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that being put on there. Says, well, I don't care who put it on there, but I says, I'm not abiding by it. It says, it's not going to happen. And they realized I was serious.
You're under arrest.
So I don't feel that they need to have that condition in there. It says, Marco and I have been personal friends for a lot of years, and I'm not going to let anybody dictate. It goes against my charter. So we're allowed to because then they wanted to cut me a deal. Well, how about you can have barbecues together, you can have personal relationship, but you can't protest. It's This is, I know what's coming. I know what's coming down the pipeline. This is, and the government's not done with their agenda. This is, and if I so happen to be at a protest with Marco, I'm sorry, but I'm not adhering to that. So I says, we get a hold of the Crown or whatever, so whatever it takes to do. I had contacted Martin from Rebel News, from Williamson Law, and Martin says, well, I've talked to the Crown, they can't get it removed. So I guess I sit here until that happens. But that crowd kept growing outside, and which was good, right? And that's what I say, we need to stand in this together in unity, right? Because unity in numbers is what's going to win this war.
So that's what was happening inside the RCMP detachment. Alex was being faced with a condition barring him from speaking with a longtime friend, arguably a very unreasonable condition, and one that nobody else from Coutts has been faced with. We've seen the same approach within the Manitoba Five, an unofficial group of individuals who peacefully protested government mandates.
Over a period of months, and after the issuance of multiple tickets and repeated attempts to educate, members of the Public Safety Investigations Unit obtained warrants of arrest for 6 individuals.
Upon release, each had to sign a condition preventing communication with the others.
I cannot have any contact via email, messaging, calling in person with the other 5 accused.
We'll have a full report soon on the Manitoba Five, but in the meantime, I want to bring your attention to Tamara Leach, another Southern Albertan who's been faced with the same kind of persecution from the state. Just like Alex, Tamara was charged with mischief and obstruction of a police officer in relation to the convoy to Ottawa. And Tamara was given a no communication condition as well with other alleged organizers of the convoy. Tamara was arrested for allegedly violating this condition and was in custody for around a month until a new judge said that several errors of law were made, and she was released. Alex made mention of the fact that the Crown said they wouldn't remove this condition, but he wasn't willing to sign anyways, which meant that he wasn't going anywhere. So that was happening inside. But outside, an entirely different situation was unfolding. A protest was brewing, sparked by the knowledge that Alex was in custody. They peacefully waited for his release. And at one point, an officer spoke with the group, and they seemed to know 3 things. 1, Alex was supposed to be home for supper. 2, Alex had a new condition that was preventing his release. And 3, the protesters knew that they weren't going anywhere until Alex was out.
So then you should have been doing your due diligence, and when you read all the conditions, you should have been aware of all the conditions, not just tell them the favorable.
Yeah, lies. He is lying.
That's not something we were aware of, right? We were told.
So then you didn't do your job.
Well, no, it's
no. You guys got bigger ideas. I know.
All I can tell you guys is what happened. Right? The investigative team didn't discuss this with us, guys. And
you just let him out.
Get this buffer back to him here.
All you have to do is let him out.
Let him out, and if he's got to go to court,
we're working hard.
we'll be sure to get him to court.
Just go back in the cough shop. Let him go.
Well, you know, guys.
Okay, I'm serious.
Right? Okay, and I don't really want to argue with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
He said he was going to call us back.
So you guys lied on purpose.
You said you hear? So then let him call me now. Well, I have your number, so I'll make sure that all happens. But I'm going to get this to him first. Okay. All right. But what I'm going to tell you guys is let's be calm. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's be calm here. Right?
We'll be here until he's out.
Okay, fair enough. You guys can be, but you know what? We want you guys to
sooner the better. Okay.
We want you guys to be peaceful, and we want you guys to, you know what? Just be calm.
From 2 sides and be peaceful. You guys decide.
You know, be calm. We'll eventually make that call for you. Okay.
Yeah.
And Okay, just be calm, okay? Because we don't need things to escalate.
You promise.
You promised us. Oh, but
What time is that? If you guys wanted Coutts 2.0 to escalate, this is the perfect situation.
Well, that's not what we want.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
We don't either, but that's...
I'm demanding he comes out today.
We're all demanding.
I'm serious.
Here.
Okay, all right. Okay, guys.
Okay, it's both.
Sometime after this conversation, without signing the new condition, Alex was suddenly released.
I refuse to sign, and that's what we've been fighting for the last 3 years, is our charter rights and freedoms, right? Freedom to protest, freedom to assemble, freedom of religion. And I said, that's what's been taken away, and that's why I'm here. It says, had they not taken our charter rights away in the last 3 years, I wouldn't have been in there. And I said, we need to stand up for this. And I feel truly that the constables that were there and the sergeants that arrested me were definitely fighting the same cause, but their hands are tied. But I told them all, here's where we take our stand.
When we arrived on scene to understand more, the protest had already wrapped up. But in their place, we saw that dozens of officers were standing outside this little RCMP station in the middle of the night. Hey, how you doing? Sorry to bother. I was just wondering if there's somebody I could quickly talk to, just for some clarification on the events of tonight.
I don't think we have anything to give you at the moment.
There was an individual earlier today who walked in, admitted themselves to custody, and then they were released. That is correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and there's nothing else you would be willing to provide me with at that time?
No.
Okay, well, I do recognize you from Coutts.
Do not want people blocking highways. Why not? Because we can't have that. Because it brings up somewhere else, and somewhere else, and somewhere else, and pretty soon the whole country's shut down.
Is there a media person or perhaps a news release in the morning that you guys are going to do on this?
I expect something to come out from the district, but
Okay.
I'm not authorized to release anything else.
Well, as you saw, we just walked over there, tried to ask the officer just a question, find out a little bit more about what's going on, of course, because we came here on the hint that one of the guys from Coutts was arrested. He peacefully submitted himself, and then he has been released. We're going to go track him down right now. I guess they're having a couple technical difficulties, but it's the police. What do you expect? So we're going to talk to Alex right now. We're going to see what's up. In contrast with what the officer said, I have yet to see any updates from the RCMP. It would have been nice to know why the Crown decided to change their mind, remove the condition, and release Alex. So I followed up with his legal counsel, supported by the Democracy Fund, and it was told to me that Alex got released because he signed his appearance and promised to appear notices. And there were various conversations between counsel, the Crown, and the RCMP. And though they might not be able to say, read the minds of the Crown or state why the Crown might have removed the no contact condition, it is most likely because they were convinced by counsel that it was unreasonable, which it certainly was. But as for why they attached this condition in the first place, well, just like Tamara Leach and the Manitoba 5 protesters that I've previously mentioned, they were peacefully protesting the tyrannical government mandates that Trudeau's brought forward for all of us, and they were able to voice their concerns to a greater audience than the government would have preferred. Here in Alberta, Alex happened to be at Grace Life Church, as well as the Coutts blockade. Both similar peaceful protests which saw government COVID enforcement reduced. In other words,
They feel if they can break up effective protesting, because I do truly believe that Coutts was an effective protest. It's too bad they staged that incident to get us out of there.
We as the Coutts convoy have decided that as a peaceful protest and to maintain that narrative, we will be rolling out tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
But like I say, I do feel we made a big impact across the world. And I think we need to continue making that impact. And I believe these freedom movements are growing by the day, but we need to get them unified and all together to fight that evil that's coming.
bit of a shout out to the Netherlands there, eh?
100%, man. I love what they're doing, right? It's great, and it just gives me a little more incentive to keep going, because the government, it's like a game of chess. We're waiting for their move, right? They're not going to stop,
So where are we now? Well, the peaceful crowd went home and didn't turn into Coutts 2.0, as was mentioned, and Alex is now free from the abuses of the state for the time being. I can't tell you why Alex was released, but I can tell you with his message where he would be if it weren't for the support group that showed up outside the local RCMP detachment. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Sidney Fizzard.
I just want to give a big shout out to the support group that came out tonight to support this, right? Because without them, I truly would have been left with remand. So I really do want to give a heartfelt shout out to the ones that showed up and supported us today.
Truckerlawyer.ca is where you have to go if you want to help donate to the legal fees for some of these truckers that were there at the Coutts blockade. Of course, many tickets are being fought, and Alex today, he's one of those individuals. As he mentioned, Marty from Williamson Law was helping him out, and that help came from you guys at truckerlawyer.ca.